So as you can see, there's no waves this week. Unfortunately, it's very small. But we are going to take this opportunity to walk through timing. I think timing is probably one of the most undervalued aspects of surfing, so I think it's going to be a great deep dive into that today. I know that timing was something that I really didn't consider for a long time in my surfing, so I think hopefully that this will help you progress to that next level in your surfing by taking timing into consideration. We'll talk through examples of timing, exactly how I think we can improve our timing and why it's so important. Then in the end, we'll take a run through my own footage and where some good and bad examples of timing and just exactly how I'm thinking about that as well. Let's get into it. Okay, so I suppose what I wanted to provide today is just a bit of an insight into timing. I know that for people who are focusing on improving their surfing, it's something that's probably not focused on nearly enough. It's really hard to figure out exactly what to work on in order to get better at your timing and how that exactly improves your surfing. So first of all, let's just start with what is timing and what does it mean for our surfing? I like to think about it as respecting the cadence of the wave by adjusting our speed and positioning to optimize the maneuvers that we're doing and the flow that we have on the wave. So you can see in this way, we're not just starting to think about what maneuvers we're doing, but where we're placing them on the wave and how well that part of the wave is suited to the maneuver that we're doing. And I think this is a big thing that stands, I guess, the great surfers from everyone else. We start to consider, okay, we need to be more patient on the waves, and we also need to make sure that we position ourselves in a way that allows for the best position in the best part of the wave. Why does timing matter? I just think that this is something that isn't really covered very well for people who are working on their surfing by themselves. I think it's very easy to get stuck into making the right shapes when we're doing our turns and everything like that. But in terms of the timing and all of what that encompasses, I think that's a little bit missing. So I think it'd be a really good thing to dive through that. And as I just alluded to before, I think there's a big difference in the people who have their timing down pat and how professional and well established their surfing looks. I always like to think if you've got the ripping local or the professional surfer, their timing is going to be impeccable. To the eye, what I think that looks like is just that they mold into the wave perfectly. I think it's easy for other surfers to get caught into wanting to do these different maneuvers, wanting to do these different nose rides on the waves, but not really matching what the wave is doing, both in terms of speed and in terms of what the wave is asking for. So the delivery on the wave just looks a little bit more disjointed, whereas if your timing is there, it almost looks like you know what the wave is going to do, like you've got a really good read on it. It looks like you have a really good interpretation of where that wave's going and what it's going to allow for. So let's get into how might we practice our timing. Probably one of the harder things, so we'll just go through this nice and slowly. Now, the first thing that I really like to think about when we are trying to improve our timing is firstly just taking the one maneuver approach. This is important because it really dials our surfing down. If we're thinking about too much on the wave, which I've alluded to in lots of other videos that I've done, then we just get a little bit rushed. There's not a lot of certainty around what we're going to be doing, and we might always be looking for that next section. So instead of interpreting the wave and reading what it wants us to do almost, we're just trying to force and place different maneuvers in different parts of the wave that might not necessarily fit. So if we take the one maneuver approach, what this does is it helps us to identify and analyze the best parts of the waves for that maneuver. So let's take an example of a drop knee turn. We can do a drop knee turn relatively anywhere on the wave, and this is where we come into the intricacies of improvement, because if you might have the drop knee turn down pat, and you might think, how do I improve this? I see X, Y, Z doing this really well. How is that different from what I'm doing? A lot of the time it's going to be positioning and also identifying those correct parts of the wave by looking for the most steep critical section that we can possibly execute that turn on. as we do that more and more, we condition ourselves to look for that section for the drop knee turn. And we're actually going to be waiting and more patient when we're looking for that maneuver or to execute that maneuver in the future. This will have a pretty profound effect on how your surfing goes in general, because instead of doing these turns in subpar sections on the wave, you're always going to be looking for that critical place if that's what you've decided to look for, and it's going to have that, I guess, that critical element to it. And so I think that's how we can step our surfing up to the next level. Again, it's much harder to do this if we're thinking about 4, 5, 6 maneuvers when we're doing this practice. So just focus on the one, do that for a bit, then you can focus on another maneuver. And I think that can be a really good way to improve our timing. And then once we've done that for a bit, we can practice reintroducing just our normal surfing and seeing if that then flows into our everyday surfing. I also like to think about or ask that question of what does it look like if we don't have good timing? And I think the classics here are bogging a rail or nose diving when we're trying to get to the nose or we're on the nose. Obviously, what's the reason we're bogging a rail? It's typically because we're placing too much tilt on that rail without enough speed, which means that the part of the wave that we're trying to execute that turn on isn't conducive to the turn that we actually want to do. And so if we try and rip a powerful drop knee turn, but we're not in the right part of the wave, it's not going to work well. And so that's where we need to make sure the timing, so our ability to place our board in the right section of the wave, to make sure we've got the positioning and the speed down pat to then execute the turn properly, so we get that maneuver to be as high level as possible. That's what we need to do. Conversely, for your nose riding, also really important to make sure we've got the timing down. Your approach to the nose has everything to do with timing, and this is typically the really hard thing that we need to focus on when we're trying to master our nose riding. When do you get to the nose? When do you get off the nose? And these are things that we can potentially talk through a little bit and discuss in other videos. But yeah, timing is absolutely crucial, so it should definitely be something that we're placing a fair bit of effort into. So let's talk through a little bit about where we would start with our timing. Just from my perspective, I think that because it's something that we all do as longboarders, if we can focus on our cross-stepping to the nose and getting to the nose and the timing there, that's probably one of the key things that we need to get right for timing. Everything else in terms of turning, we can kind of get away with. We can of course improve it with timing, but I think the nose riding and the cross-stepping to the nose and actually successfully getting to and from the nose is one thing where timing is just imperative. So let's step through that now. The main things I'm considering to do with timing when I'm approaching the nose is going to be looking ahead, analyzing the section to see when is that section going to stand up. One of the best ways to approach the nose, if you can see a section that's going to be more critical down the line, and you can kind of think like you're backdooring that section. So you see it coming up nice and critical, you're taking your steps up towards the nose, and so by the time you are on the nose, you've just hit that nice critical section, and you can, I guess, get into a really nice critical hang 5, hang 10, and yeah, that's a really good way about getting to the nose. Alright, so what I thought we might do now is actually step through some old footage. I've actually got a video, it's just a short video that I released on the channel a little while back. And it was around a time when I was really starting to consider and work on timing for my own surfing. So slowing things down, being a bit more patient, really trying to be very particular with how I place things into different parts of the wave. This was at a time when, you know, COVID was doing its thing, and all the competitions had kind of come to a standstill. And so there was a lot of time to focus on my surfing outside of contests, which was, I think, a really healthy development for my surfing. But let's step into that now. So what we'll do is we'll just let the whole video run through, and I'll be speaking throughout at different points as well. But I suppose as it is running through, just trying to, I guess, take note of hopefully the fact that it was a little bit slower pace and I was really trying to mold my surfing to the wave. Hopefully nothing's looking forced, but obviously not, hadn't perfected it, nor have I right now. So yeah, we'll just run through that now. All right, so in the lead up for this one, I think something that I really like to just make a point of early on here is the use of the hang 5 leading into a hang 10 into this section. So I always think the back foot adjustments are really important, and they can help with, I suppose, how we're able to manage our position on the nose, on the wave, instead of just having to think I'm just going to hang 10 or I'm just going to hang 5. Being able to manipulate your position on the wave is super important. So we can see that this one here, back foot stepping back, back foot stepping forwards, depending on how the wave is standing up. So I can manipulate my back foot to suit that nose ride and to try and elongate and extend that out a little bit more. Something I was really focusing on is making sure that all of my turns were flowing from one to another. So I was pretty happy with how I was able to execute that on this session here. Okay, again, trying to stay nice and critical there and trying to stay nice and high. I think I was really happy with how I was linking some of these turns up. So a lot of them I didn't require a pump into the turn. I did in the first one, but this one here, it's a nice steady drop knee turn straight from the positioning or at the top of the wave, down carve, using that speed and being able to hook back into the white water. Now, something I really like to point out here, which is super important, is our timing and in terms of how we're setting up for the nose ride. So going back to a little bit about what I was speaking about before, if we backtrack here a little bit, we can see that I'm actually cross-stepping from the tail to the middle of the board in the whitewater. So I know that that section ahead of me is going to be standing up. We can see that above or just in front of me on the wave there. And so again, if I'm coming into that section, or if I'm in that section and I'm in the tail, it's going to be a lot more difficult and it's going to take longer to get to the nose, rather than if I do take those first 2 steps forwards in the whitewater, and then as we come forwards, I'm in the right position to take the 2 steps forwards to the nose and make the most of that nose ride, getting to the 10. And so pretty stoked with that one there. A little foot drag and then finishing that one off. Okay, now this one here, I like to look at that bottom turn or that fade. That's the fade takeoff. I think I probably could have executed that a little bit better. You can notice that in the beginning of that turn, what's actually happening is my board only just molds into that position on the wave. So very easily could have done a nosedive or pearled in some way there, but luckily was able to hold that through. But what I did have to do was slam really hard on the tail so that I could then, lift that nose of the board up enough and pivot it around quickly enough so it wouldn't. So it did work out in the end there. But in terms of timing, what I could do to correct that in the future is potentially paddling into that wave a little bit earlier, or being a little bit further out on the shoulder if I did want to execute a deep fade turn like that. But yeah, it still worked out and went into a pretty nice nose ride there again, straight into the drop knee, and that's what I was really trying to focus on, the getting rid of those in-between movements and having everything flow together really nicely. So that's coming through there. Again, coming through with the 2 cross steps in the whitewater to position myself closer to the nose when I come into that section. I was pretty happy with how that worked out there as well. Okay, little bank off the top. Cool, and something I want to go through with that turn as well. So depending on what the wave's doing, and this is where we do need to be really assessing and reading what the wave is doing. This wave here was racing down the line a little bit quicker, and so you notice with that bottom turn there, it was a really quick bottom turn to redirect down the face of the wave again. If I had have elongated or extended that arc out too much, then I would have missed this forward section coming through and I wouldn't have been able to get to the nose here. So I think that was one of the big things there, but really happy with how I was able to stay high in the wave and engage with that 10, and then just a little turn to finish that one off. All right, so I think that'll about wrap it up. If you have any questions on any of that today, please just leave them in the comments below. For the week coming up, we've got tip time coming up on Wednesday again. Make sure you're leaving some comments for anything that you'd like me to cover there. Just pick through the comments which ones we might go through, but have been really enjoying getting through those. So yeah, let me know if there's anything else you'd like me to cover this Wednesday. Otherwise, we've got the Sunday glide coming up next Sunday as well, of course. So stay tuned for that. Other than that, hope you're all getting waves, and we'll see you soon. You.